Okay, here we go. Today, this is our first day chatting with anybody since the end of our Indiegogo Goodbye Promise campaign. We have the pleasure of speaking with not only a filmmaker, a cowboy, and he's always one who seems to, in the last several years, when we were pushing Lucas McNally's Year Without Rent, when we were pushing Jack Marquette's campaign, just recently his Four of a Kind campaign, and now recently, our own campaign. This is a guy that sort of comes out. He's part of the Calvary. You can find him on Twitter, Kevin Fox Films. He has his own experience with distributing his own work. He does niche films, cowboy films, and we're going to go back and forth and sort of, we're going to learn from what we've done, get his take on it and learn from what he's done. Kevin, welcome aboard here today.
Hello.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure.
Cool. Nice meeting you in Google person. It's like this is gonna be the new way to like meet people, and I like this.
Total. It's a total trend. Oh my gosh, there's your cat.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was just watching James Cooper's interview with you guys that you posted last week, and about I think it was 27:40 or something, and the cat made an appearance, and I was like, "There's the cat."
It was sweet. And I was like trying to kiss him when he was,
Yeah.
talking about crowdfunding. It was great.
Yeah, this is a new world for us to take it outside the radio studio, and here at home and just in front of the computer and chatting with people. Kevin, with this conversation today, we wanted to start with just the overall impact that this Goodbye Promise Indiegogo campaign had on you.
Okay, the campaign itself. Okay, first of all, I was drawn in because you guys tweeted me personally, and I think the tweet was, "Hey, where's our cowboy?" As if I was sleeping. Hey, we need your help here. And I've always considered you guys friends, just like I do many of my Twitter friends in the indie film community on Twitter. And whenever I can, I'm always there. If I don't know you, you don't have we don't have this regular conversation going on. You better make me love your campaign. I better love your film. The films or the campaigns that I like to get involved with on whatever platform, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, I know that's a big debate. I look to be innovative, and you mentioned Lucas's film, and I jumped on that because that was absolutely innovative. What Lucas was doing, I immediately saw was going to benefit everybody in the indie film community. I had some banner Twitters during Goodbye Promise with Lucas. I know he's working hard, and I think Karen scolded me. That better be in good fun, and it absolutely was. Anybody that doesn't think that Lucas McNally and others, but I'll use Lucas as an example, that are trying to explain to us in the indie community how this is evolving. They're giving us sort of a definition and a case studies of how it's working, but what they're really doing is, if you put that all together, this is how this industry is evolving. And if anybody doesn't think that Lucas McNally is one of the hardest working guys in indie community, well, you're fooling yourself. And you may not like his gruff attitude, but I think he's a straight shooter in cowboy terms. Going back to Goodbye Promise, you guys said, "Hey, I need your help. I'm always there to help." So immediately I looked at the page, and I thought, okay, $1, $2, how are you guys going to make $1 million in 30 days at $1 at a $2 renter? It's not possible. And again, I was watching your interview last week here recently with James Cooper, and I think his quote was, here's a crowdfunding campaign that can't fail. And I think I had kind of the same notion, but immediately I didn't understand what the end goal was. So ultimately, the historian and documentarian I dig a little deeper, and I click some tabs and kind of figure out that, hey, that you can watch this film. It's on YouTube. Ta-da! You don't have to pay for this. But it didn't seem right, and I'm a big advocate of not bootlegging software or, you know, that sort of thing. I've been an artist a long time, and, you know, when people steal work to make other work or whatever, that kind of irks me. Didn't seem right to just click on the YouTube and do it. I knew people would, so I threw in, I thought, more than my share. And my hopes was in that not only my contribution could boost some ratings, but that other people who couldn't afford it or whatever could watch this film. So initially I jumped in because you guys are friends of mine, and that's ultimately what crowdfunding is about. You go and you get your friends and your family and whomever else, you know, is capable of helping you. It took me a couple of days to actually sit down and watch Goodbye Promise. You know, I'm involved in my own production right now. I was on a deadline with a client and some other things, but after finally knuckling down and saying, I got to see this film, my whole perspective kind of changed because, you know, Goodbye Promise is not a film about Hollywood, certainly. It's a film about having a goal and having a dream and setting limitations and being realistic. And there were particular scenes in that film that affected me, you know, personally. I don't live in Hollywood. Don't care to. Don't aspire to have the Hollywood dream. It's why I don't live there. I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be famous. You know, but then there were scenes there that made me focus on what I'm doing and what I'm trying to attempt. And it had me reassessing where I'm at and where I plan to be in that 7 years. The campaign itself, and after, you know, especially after you guys started posting these sort of rules of engagement, became very, very clear on what you were doing. And to me, the way that you release it, and again, I know there's this big debate whether you use Kickstarter for this and Indiegogo for that, or, you know, whatever. And I've never crowdfunded. I've never raised. I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to do that. I have a nonprofit that funds most of my pictures. So, you know, there may come a time when I have to do that. So trust me, I'm studying the case matter. But what I saw you guys doing is opening a whole new door. And I think I mentioned to you, what you're doing seems to me on the crowdfunding platform or engagement with the audience is going from the pitch to production to the pitch, production, and play. And I found that to be absolutely fascinating. How better to engage your audience from help me make this film, this is what my film's about, I hope you like it, help me make this film, to this is where we're at in production, here's some clips to show you about your investment, to hey, here's your movie. And I think that's what you guys did here. I know you used 2 different platforms from, you know, start to finish, but you ended up on Indiegogo, and you ended up showing, at least me, I can't speak for everybody, but at least me, I think you showed the rest of us out here that a lot of things are possible, and we're not going to stop as independent filmmakers. We're going to continue to evolve this. You can't stop us, and you're going to have to catch up to us. When it seemed like not long ago when these platforms emerged, we were trying to catch up with them. So instantly you guys have kind of pulled this reversal, and it's now it seems like once again the indie film community has the upper hand, and I just love that concept.
That's cool.
Yeah, you want us to take it from there?
You
know, all right, I'll continue. I'll continue. You know,
I'm listening.
I really, wow. You know, just from your assessment there, Kevin, we can see that we made a great decision in terms of who we want to talk to. You know, post campaign. You know, that was yeah, you really hit on some things there. You know, because we're you know, that's the thing sometimes with what we're doing is we're in the middle of it, and we can gain so much from just these additional perspectives that we're trying to gather. You know, we're trying to gather these case studies, and we're just trying to figure this out, and we're trying to push it into that next thing. And one thing you hit about, you know, there at the end there is I guess the whole thing, and you know, and that's why we wanted to do this. I mean, it wasn't easy to say, okay, we're going to bypass film festivals, we're going to, you know, sort of bypass that whole system, because there's a lot of gratification that comes with that, you know, when you start getting accepted into film festivals, and maybe you start winning some awards, and it really sort of, you know, makes you feel better as a filmmaker. But for us, you know, it was just more of just, we just wanted to just get it to as many people as, whatever that number was going to be, we just wanted to start getting it in front of people. And there were tough questions we had to ask in terms of what's currently available that we could use that could be exciting as a way to release this film, you know, and as we were looking at crowdfunding, and as we went back and forth from first Kickstarter we were looking at, and then we looked at Indiegogo, and we just felt that combination of like, look, this platform exists, you know, YouTube already exists, and sort of marrying these platforms, and still, like you're saying, keeping that independent spirit as a way, instead of going one film festival at a time, just, you know, because we just had conversations, you know, for me just yesterday with another actor, and he's like, so how about this film festival, and how about this film festival, and, you know, what about this one, and it's tough because it's just like, you know, yes, that they come with their advantages, and yes, we'd love to do that, but at the same time, you know, here we have an opportunity where it's just like, this is one big film festival for us. You know, we were able to reach people in 19 or 20 different countries, you know, in 30 days. So if you look at what we've done and you say, wow, that was just their first film festival, you know, there's just so many ways to look at this so far.
Well, I like, too, what you said, Kevin, about is sort of a threefold process. First, crowdfunding to make the film, and then second, involving them saying, here's where, you know, your investment, and showing, you know, sort of the progress, and then the third, here's your movie. I like that. I mean, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I was initially resistant to the idea, and I was especially scared of the $1 million mark. But I think, you know, I know with a lot of Dave's ideas, I might be resistant to them at first, and then we kind of say, all right, well, let's just try it, you know, and it ends up working out. So I'm happy for the feedback that you're giving us, because it is hard to see how people perceive it. You know, we're kind of in this bubble, just at our computers, putting stuff out there, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just hard to see. You feel isolated a little bit, and so it's, thank you. I appreciate you know, you summing it up. I like that.
You know, no worries. And change feels weird. You know, I mean, and that's what you guys did. You have ultimately flip-flopped, hopefully, what the indie film community is now possibly capable of doing. But I want to pose a question to you guys as far as film festivals. Going into a film festival and taking a film into a film festival, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I personally believe you're more likely to get accepted at a film festival if, because it's the butts and seats, you know, ultimate deal, if you can come in with your own laurels. So, you know, you're trying to get their laurels at a film festival, but if you come in with your own, the ones you've already accomplished, you're more likely to be accepted. Now, that's just my opinion, and it may not necessarily be the truth, but I think that's what you guys have done here. You have shown, I don't know, what were the numbers, 600 and something actual paid views, and then if you look at the YouTube, I mean, it's 1,000 something, and then 20 countries. It's like, so now if you take this thing to a film festival, you can say, hey, film festival programmer, here's your audience, you know, and here, I guarantee if you accept my film, I'll put butts in seats, which is a tactic that I have used to get into film festivals. Now, I haven't done a lot of competition in film festivals, but I love the film festival atmosphere. I love getting together with people and discussing like we are now, and exploring new ideas and finding out what people are doing. So there's that festival atmosphere that I think is important in the indie community. But I think what you guys are doing now is coming into, if you choose to film festival, coming in and saying, look at these numbers. And there's no denying that. You know, I mean, how innovative is that? Because now you're reaching out to an audience who wasn't involved in the campaign, may not necessarily even have a clue about Indiegogo or how to crowdfund or what the indie film community is doing. They just bought a ticket to a film festival in some podunk little town that they live in, and they want to be a part of it. But now you're exposing them to a whole process that is available to filmmakers, and now you guys, because you're able to go to these film festivals and say, this is how we did it, and this is how you can help fund other indie films. Now you're dragging them, hopefully not kicking and screaming, but you're helping to drag them into this entire indie film community. And you guys both know from the Twitter feed, there's a lot of people that are involved in the indie community that are not necessarily filmmakers, and we need more of that. We can't be pitching, you know, fund my film, fund my film, fund my film to filmmakers who are trying to fund their own film. We can't do that. We have to rely on people like Petra and Movie Angel and you know Patty Fantasia, all those other, you know, some of these other people that, you know, throw money at these films because they believe in what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point, is how do you get beyond your own sphere of influence? And I think that is really hard. And you know, I think it was great that we were able to sort of, you know, spread it beyond that. And I think that's the tough part, is getting beyond those family and friends, and also, too, people that are your peers in the industry. And I think I'm slightly to the left about film festivals. I know Dave has a very definite opinion on them. For me, I don't know if I really want that for us, but I know for some people who don't have a platform, you know, we spent 3 years building a radio show, which we had to pay to do, so there was money involved. And so I know a lot of people don't have that time or luxury, whatever, to do that. And therefore, I think festivals might be a necessary step. Maybe not Sundance or one of these bigger ones that most people won't get into, but I think some of the smaller ones, it is, I don't want to call it a necessary evil, because it's not evil, but you know what I'm saying? It might be something that people would have to do, whereas we were fortunate enough to have a website and a radio show that had some views. So, you know, but yeah, even beyond, still, it was hard to get beyond our little niche of whatever followers we have, you know?
Yeah, sure. And to expand on your point there, Kevin, I mean, so far we've been contacted by 3 film festivals since we launched the campaign. One film festival has invited us up to speak, and this one I don't even think is a narrative film festival. I think this one is a documentary film festival. And then we've had 2 other festivals that have contacted us, and we've sent them the link to the film. So it's hard to say. We still don't know what would happen from that. We don't know if more film festivals are going to contact us, but you know, I think we sort of share your opinion that, you know, especially for these smaller independent films, you know, show that your film has some clout, show that people are interested in your film, show some of the feedback, and then maybe that'll open up some new doors. I don't know still, even now, if we're going to go out of our way to submit to a lot of film festivals. We have some other plans in terms of what we'd like to do with the film, and so but if they contact us and say, hey, can we just see a screener, can we see the film, whatever, we'll happily share it. And if they sort of invite us along and say, look, we want to screen the film, we'd like to get you guys here and talk about what you guys are doing, you know, we're totally up for that, you know, and you know, we could see that being a way, you know, to maybe put some of the power back in independent filmmakers, for us to bring our films, for us to bring our stories, and for whatever audience that we've built up to kind of bring that and promote and share, and we think that that's eventually where things will be headed. You know, we believe in sort of growing, you know, as much as you can online, and then you sort of take that offline and share in the experience, and we feel film festivals can play that role even more so moving forward.
Sure. You know, you bring more clout to this, just being David and Karen and Film Courage with this film, than anything else. And what I don't think, now, some of my background is in concert production and concert production management, so I understand the other side of, you know, the film festival, the organization side of the film festival. And I know there's some, you know, some people in the film community, indie film community, that say, oh, we shouldn't charge and all of that stuff, but there's expenses involved, and I mean, that's a fact. Whether you agree with that or not, that's your opinion, but I happen to know the facts about the other side. You know, in order for those film festivals to be sustainable. I'm also really heavily involved in my own small town community, and you guys know, if you watch Without a Box, you know, you see these mom and pop film festivals starting up in every town across USA, you know, and they're desperately trying to find some way in this, you know, economic mess that we're all dealing with nationwide into not only revitalize economy in their own community, but to bring their communities together. And I think it's a wonderful concept. Not that it's a practical concept for some communities, but it's a wonderful concept for these small communities to want to rally around film and independent film. Now, fortunately for us as independent filmmakers, usually they can't afford big Hollywood to come to their small town, so we get showcased over, you know, some bigger names. Often they'll bring talent in, to boost things. But again, I think you guys going in with your clout, you have a bigger pool, and I don't want to put it on you that you have a responsibility, but you've almost taken this responsibility as being sort of what I see, especially in the Twitter community, rally around film courage and the idea of what film courage is all about, to when you go to these things, if you choose to go to these things, to be representing the rest of the indie film community. And that's what I sort of mean by sort of, you know, breaking down this door for the rest of us. If you get into a film festival, I think it's because they said, wow, here's a completely, you know, DIY, no budget, not even micro budget, but no budget, you know, film done in a very professional way, and self-distributed, in order to say, hey, here I am, watch me. And now you're having film festivals court you. You know, I think that's a wonderful concept. So if I had to throw advice at you, I would say don't rule it out, but be very selective on what film festivals you choose. It's what I do. I mean, with my own genre, I can't, you know, blanket. I'm never an advocate of any filmmaker to blanket put out, you know, I'm going to send to whatever pops up on my Without a Box. That's just, to me, a waste of money. But be very selective and do your research. And I'm not speaking to you guys. I know you do your research. I'm speaking to other filmmakers who might be watching this. But do your research and know if your film is going to be, you know, right for that genre. You know, Lucas, when he came here, he had some time here in San Francisco and a stayover, and I got to enjoy that guy for 3 days in my house. And believe me, we stayed up till hours in the morning, and I picked his brain, and he picked my brain, and I understand his point of view on film festivals. I'm sure you guys do too. And we kind of differ a little bit, but you know, one of the things that we agreed upon was absolutely do your research, know who you're talking to. And one of the best advice that Lucas gave me was have no fear into sending the programmer or festival organizer a personal message and just flat out saying, this is my film. This is what it's about. Is it right for your festival? Are you going to program this? And I've used that, and I've decided through several film festivals that, yeah, that guy just wants my money, and he may or may not choose me. And if he does choose me, now he plans to use me as his own clout. And do I want to be put in that position? So, you know, I want to digress just a little bit. David, you mentioned documentary film festival is courting you. How fascinating is that? Because as a documentary filmmaker, when I got into Goodbye Promise, instantly I realized this is real. This is not scripted. And of course I went back to the thing and I realized, oh, it's 100% improv. And when I finished the film, and I went on my Facebook page, and after the campaign was over, and I told everybody, you know, if you haven't seen it, this is where you need to start. I went back to all your Kickstarter videos that you put on YouTube, where you introduced all the characters, telling what Goodbye Promise was. And that's where I fell in love with the characters. Not during watching the movie. I went back and saw you as real people playing these characters as real people and telling me what it was all about. And so I find it very interesting that a documentary film festival is now courting you because, you know, are we now cross-genre with Goodbye Promise?
It's funny that you brought up those videos because the thought came to us today actually, and here we are post campaign that maybe we should have revamped those videos and we could have put those back out during this release of the campaign. So
I was wondering actually why you didn't do that.
Yeah, I guess
not that you didn't have other stuff to do.
Yeah, it's sometimes when I mean, here we are, we're distributing a film, but also we're using a crowdfunding platform, and sometimes you just come up with a certain game plan of like, okay, these are the kind of things we're going to do during this release, and then you can plan so much, you can strategize so much, but once the time is ticking and the time's underway, it's just you try to utilize your resources as best you can, and so it's kind of like it's, I guess, like surfing, and once that wave hits and you're in the wave and you're riding it, it's like you just have to ride the wave as best you can until it's all done. So
sure, you have to concentrate on where your feet are at, where the wave is at, and all of that. And we clearly saw you guys doing that. I mean, it's refreshing to hear that, and I know it's the rule, but it's refreshing to hear that you actually had a plan and you stuck to it, and you left those videos out of the plan, but at least you stuck to your plan. Am I wrong in that?
As best we could. There was a lot of levels that we weren't able to hit. We thought initially that we would be able to attract. I mean, frankly, we thought we'd be able to get more people because we were only asking for $1. We just thought that not necessarily a higher dollar amount, because we never thought that the average would end up being close to $8 per person. We're thinking, okay, people are just going to be contributing $1 at a time. And we just thought we'd be able to reach more people, especially early on. And so there were a lot of things that we just never hit that level of engagement. We had some things that we wanted to do in terms of group rewards and things like that we wanted to partake. But it ended up being a campaign of just really just on the lowest level. From start to finish, it was really just a level or we just had to focus on engagement. That was pretty much the campaign from day one to the last day, was just engaging with those who were engaging with us.
What was the audience you were attempting to engage? Was it Hollywood actors? Was it the general public you were trying to educate about Hollywood actors? Who was your target audience?
Okay. Karen and I, we've been building, Film Courage for over 3 years, and we felt that this was a movie that spoke to a lot of people that pay attention to Film Courage, So with this initial release, we first wanted to just get as many folks from Film Courage on board, and some of our earlier folks that supported the Kickstarter campaign. So that was a big part of our engagement. And then sort of some outer circles, beyond that, we made big attempts to get into the acting community and reach out to, we hit a lot of acting websites. We had a hard time sort of penetrating some folks there. So I guess the heart of it was as many people sort of surrounding the independent film community as we could, because there's a lot of it that it's an artist story, and so we went after filmmakers, and in terms of, once again, reaching some of those outer levels, it kind of staggered, and it was like hitting cement all around us, and so and that's mainly because you need to create enough momentum to continue to have it roll out that far, and it was still sort of centralized to our immediate outreach, I guess.
I'm intrigued by something that you said, Kevin, and you said that you're interested in the backstories of some of the characters to some of these initial crowdfunding videos. In terms of the campaign that we just did, what do you think would have been really great in getting like additional stories from those same actors, or maybe some of the other actors that we didn't talk to? What would you have liked to have heard?
A very interesting question, Karen. During the pitch process, I think, and I'll speak purely as a consumer, during the pitch process, I want to hear why I want to invest in this film. But I think what you guys did with the release of Goodbye Promise was different, which is why, I kind of, dug up those older videos where, the players, the actors are talking about the characters that they played and what Goodbye when I saw those videos, it helped me better understand the motivation, the acting motivation that went in behind it. I mean, clearly you saw in the performances that there was real dialogue coming across. One of my favorite scenes is fighting about money in the kitchen, and immediately when I saw that, and at the time knowing that it's improv, you know, I want to, as a documentarian and historian, and always wanting to know the backstory, I want to know where that motivation comes from. You know, a lot of your other actors, and one of the other scenes that really, really deeply affected me was the scene on the roof, where, you know, the film director is telling the actor's confronting the film director, which is always the case. You know, he's like, why isn't the movie done? And you know, he seems to have excuse after excuse after excuse, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then finally, this sort of revealing truth comes out, you know, that life happens. And my life is more important than this movie and your career at this point on this roof. And that's what I took away from that. And then it's sort of, I don't want to give a spoiler, but then it sort of carries on where an even bigger truth is revealed at the party between the same characters, and you know, minds are speaked, and it's just like, this is how I feel, and you know, and this is what I'm dealing with, and your problems are insignificant to that. So, you know, after seeing that, that's why I went back and dug up those stories. I wanted to know where this motivation, you know, for how this came from. And again, I don't do narrative. So it's hard for me to understand what you actors do. I think I tweeted during the campaign a John Ford quote, you know, you can teach an actor to be a cowboy, but you can't teach a cowboy to be an actor, which is why I do documentary, and the documentary I do, I want people to be real. And when I saw Goodbye Promise and then realized this is the truth. There is nothing fabricated here. Words that are coming out of their mouth are true life experiences. That's what, you know, that's what hooked me, you know, in the whole thing. So I hope I answered your question, Karen.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
You know, also from a consumer point of view, Kevin, because we haven't had you know, believe it or not, we just haven't had a lot of feedback because this is all so new. And I guess right before I get to the question, I mean, that was part of this release as well. It's like you said, we're sort of breaking down new walls, and when you sort of innovate in this sort of fashion, it's just like, you know, not only are we trying to release the film and get people to see it, but we're also trying to explain the process and just have people wrap their heads around like what we're doing. The fact that here we are crowdfunding it at the same time the film's available and you can see it, and this whole thing, you know, we feel like, you know, and we're also doing it on a platform that's not exactly built for what we're looking for, you know. So we're trying to like do the best we can with the platform that exists. So if the platform really comes along and if it evolves and you have like the hands-on tools that are necessary, you know, that might help you, you know, reach more people and be more effective and all that. But from a consumer point of view, in terms of using Indiegogo and sort of, you know, going through the payment process and then going and seeing the film on YouTube, were there any issues there? I mean, how seamless was that process for you?
You know, it's interesting that you brought that up. I think during the campaign on the last night, actually, you and I had that quick discussion. Indiegogo, it's all personal preference, I imagine. I don't keep money in an Amazon account, which is how you pay for, you know, Kickstarter. So I have to go to my, you know, ATM card or my credit card, and I actually have to type those numbers in and, you know, and throw money. And, you know, you're an artist, I'm an artist. I hope artists are watching this, and we're all broke, and we're all broke together. I set money aside in my PayPal account for the sales of my own film to support indie film. It's something that I've done for a long time, and it's how I try to throw money back, you know, to support what everybody else is doing. And Indiegogo just allowed that to be super seamless and easy for me. So that was really just a personal preference thing. I think I like the Kickstarter idea because, you know, Amazon is secure and all of this, but, you know, to be honest, and again, coming from the area that I live in, where less people know how to work their email than even are aware of what Amazon is, and having them go through the process of setting up an account in order to give them money in, and that's a matter of convenience too. You have to have an Amazon account. If you don't use Amazon, you ain't getting no money, you know. And PayPal just makes it easy because once you hit that step, you know, it's a matter of entering either your credit or your PayPal, or you enter a credit card number or whatever, you know, that might happen to be. So again, that's personal preference. But I didn't, either way, I've done both. But I just preferred this Indiegogo experience as just being more convenient.
And then as a filmmaker, I mean, how did you take it? You know, in terms of, you know, the overview of saying, okay, like here are another set of filmmakers, and they're using Indiegogo as the storefront. They're using YouTube on the back end to watch the film. You know, what did you think of that in terms of like, wow, this is how easy it can be. There's no other middlemen. Wow. You know, and I'm sure you've seen like the 14 reasons that we highlighted why we chose Indiegogo. You know, but it's like that immediate instant access to the film. Do you have any additional commentary on that part as a fellow filmmaker in terms of, you know, because you've had to go through a lot of deliverables and all this stuff in terms of delivering your film, you know, DVDs and all this stuff. What did you think of that part of the process?
Well, you know, all of us as artists, filmmakers, whatever, photographers, musicians, writers, etc., we're all affected by this internet thing, and everybody says, you know, once you put it out there, it's free, you know, kind of deal. And I'm not a big advocate of that because I know how us as artists are supposed to make money. What I think I would like to see, and what I'm hoping that you guys have sort of ignited here, is that these platforms are going to take a good hard look at what maybe some VOD platforms are using. I'm a big advocate of Dynamo Player. Rob Mills over there has always been good to me with my films. Whenever I have any questions, he jumps right back in. So, you know, at Dynamo Video on Twitter. But I'd like to see them adopt something like that that's a little more secure, where it's still a contribution, and you know, it's like in your last interview, whatever, like James Cooper said, and he's selling his book, which I'm about to buy because it was a great interview. But you know, whatever you want to pay, whether it's $1 or $5 or $20, and like you guys found that the average was $8. Well, that's the price of a movie ticket in my town. You know, $8 for, you know, not a matinee showing, but you know, an evening showing. However they want to do it, but it needs to be a little more secure so that we as filmmakers and producers of the content have some more security, that people are just not taking advantage. I think it's to their benefit as well as ours. And so I'm hoping what you guys did will ignite them to at least explore and pay attention to what it seems like now the indie film community is demanding. This is the way we're going to go. You created it. We're going to use it. And now you have to catch up to us again. And, of course, there'll be a time where they'll leapfrog us and put out something new, and we'll all scramble around and write articles and blog posts about how to use it. And you know, we'll try to one-up them. So, you know, it's all an evolution, I guess. So.
And do you really see it that way? Do you really see it that walls have been broken? You know, because, you know, a lot of people will look at our efforts and they'll say, you know, I know you said 600, but, you know, at the end of the day, I guess we had 410 rentals. It was over $3,200. You know, and in terms of Hollywood, in terms of all the establishment, I mean, these are minuscule numbers. But do you feel like we've created enough impact where enough other artists and filmmakers and musicians and whatever publishers are they looking at this and saying, you know what, this is something that I'm going to want to try?
Well, I certainly hope they are. We all know, as artists, filmmakers, you know, musicians, whatever, we all know that this is the wave of the future. Everybody, you watch your content on the subway. If you're driving, your wife is, you know, in the passenger seat watching a movie or looking up directions. It's how we communicate, and that's ultimately what filmmaking is, and we'll use that as an example, or whatever, you know, like, you know, Kevin Gantz's music. That's what he does. He communicates. You know, I mean, that's what art is. It's the study of communication, and they're going to have to catch up to us. We're going to have to catch up to it, and there has to be this marriage. There has to be this cooperation. We provide the content. They own the platform. We can't create the content and be the ones creating the platform. You know what I mean? If that's the case, we're all going to go back to sidewalk performance, you know, like in the Middle Ages, where we just, you know, put out our hat and dance and sing for anybody that'll drop money, which is ultimately the concept of, you know, what you guys did. Hey, here's my movie, put some change in my hat. You know, I hope you like it, put some change in my hat. And I'm sure if you look at your statistics, you've got a few passers-by that just, you know, threw money in your guitar case kind of deal. I hope that the rest of the industry is going to see this and begin to demand it, because I think we need it. I think there needs to be multiple platforms. I think those platforms need to be have their own personal preferences. And again, going back to the IG versus Kickstarter debate, you know, it's either this or it's either that, and some are better than this and some is better than that. It's really personal preference. I just think that, you know, we as artists, filmmakers, those who are trying to make a living doing this, trust me, we're scratching to make a living here. It's what we need, and it gives us authority and empowerment in order to reach our audience. And I just think that's ultimately, to sum it up, I think that's what you guys did. You opened this door and you said, I'm gonna reach my audience, and whether you like it or not, I'm gonna reach out to my audience. So
I like that. It really does boil down to empowerment. I think you're really right. And it costs nothing for us to do it this way. I think that's the beauty of it. And I have no doubt that someone else could do it with many more views and dollar signs attached to it, and I hope someone does. But yeah, you're right. We didn't require any kind of gatekeeper. You know, all we needed was Indiegogo to say, yes, you can, you know, put this project on there and approve that. But other than that, there was no gatekeeper involved. Yeah, that's a great feeling.
And with that, let's dive a little bit into what you're doing, Kevin. You know, can you first highlight, you know, because, you know, maybe this will help broaden the perspective on everything. Can you first highlight how many feature films, you know, have you made over the years?
I have only done one feature documentary. I've done 7 documentaries total, all in the cowboy genre. Now, understand that I have 25 years in the photography industry. Going all the way back to high school. I wanted desperately to be a writer, but I couldn't remember where the commas go after the quote. So I knew I was not going to do that. I was kind of mediocre at math. I was lucky enough to marry a math teacher, so I'm covered there. But I realized photography was the visual arts, and photography was a great way for me to communicate my ideas. This is back in the late 1980s when cameras actually gave you, you know, 3-4 functions in order to create an image, and everything else was left up to you. You know, nowadays with Instagram, everybody's a photographer with a, you know, Instagram and a Facebook page. Wow, you could do this, and we're seeing that we're seeing it become easier in filmmaking with DSLR and some automatic modes, and, you know, those types of things, and cameras have evolved also. To make it easier for people to tell the story. So you just need to be creative and not so technical. But when I started, it was, you know, darkroom, and then I got hired on at a studio, and I was a gaffer for a long time. All I did was lighting and lighting diagrams and setup and, you know, grip work and all of that before I was even allowed to touch a shutter, you know. And then it kind of evolved from there. So it was easy for me to make the transition to filmmaking. When I did make that transition, it was out of necessity. I have a client, and my art is in, I like to call it, I'm in the communicative arts. What I do is I take people's ideas, so I put them either in two-dimensional print, graphic design, or in photographs, and I apply them to marketing or things like that in order to communicate an idea. A lot of times it's to sell a product or an organization, etc. For me, filmmaking was a necessity because I had a client approach me and said, we have this dilemma and we need to shorten this. Unfortunately for them, when they put it in my lap, being the historian and storyteller that I always wanted to be, their little short, sort of industrial video became this documentary. And they said, we'll give you 10 minutes to do, to do this story. Well, that turned into 30 minutes. And the artist that I am, I pounded my fist on the desk in the office and I said, you're not cutting it. You're not taking it. No, this is the story. We tell the story from the beginning to the middle to the end. That's a story. You can't cut this. It's too important. You can't. And I fought. Finally, they let me do it. And this is a nonprofit that I work with and have for since 2004, I think, 2005. And I am so blessed that these guys have come to understand what I do is important to them and allow me to do what I do for them, almost, free reign. I mean, they give me complete creative control. We do it just like any other film is done. We have a meeting, we make we do an outline, we make a treatment, we do interviews, and then I begin filming, generally speaking. We had a screening last night of a film that I'm working on. It's called Haulers, which is about it's about the beef industry, the ranching industry, but from the cattle hauling perspective. I mean, if you've watched the news, we've had a plant closure in Hanford that made national news, and we see so much negative in ranching and agriculture. Those seem to be the ones that pop up on YouTube all the time, and downed cattle and forklifts and some other things. That we decided to take this particular film from a completely different perspective about how cattle are handled, and it completely opened up a whole new world to me. And I grew up in agriculture, about what these guys do. We did this screening last night, sold out, 640 people. It was practically standing room only, and you guys have been to film festivals. You know that feeling you get when your film starts to run and then everybody gets engaged and it all gets quiet, and then suddenly the crowd erupts in cheers. That's what happened last night, and pretty amazing evening. And multiple times during the movie, when you've got 600 people in a building applauding in the middle of the film, where you're going, well, wait a minute, that's supposed to be a comedy line, and they're applauding and cheering your film. It's pretty good, pretty awesome feeling. So.
Oh, that's cool. Wow.
Yeah, no, that's
like
awesome.
Electric. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. So this Haulers, now this is a short documentary then. This is a.
It's actually, it's supposed to be a short documentary. Again, I go back to, they gave me. The first cut I gave them was 23 minutes, and they said, oh, no, you can't do that. So they said, it's got to be 10. I think I ended up with 17 that we actually showed. So there's always this negotiation that goes on. We actually ended up shooting about 16 hours of footage between the four families. And so I'm pretty positive it's going to end up as a 90-minute feature. And it's the first one of these documentaries that this particular organization has allowed me to sort of skirt some of the politics that go along with this industry, about overregulation, about whether it be the trucking industry and environmental issues as far as air pollution, and the cattle industry as far as some of the regulations they're dealing with. And if you watch the news nationwide, we're dealing with a drought. A lot of people don't realize that right now in the beef industry, the cattle herd population is the lowest it's been since the 1950s, but the demand for beef as a product is stable and continues to be so. And if you present those as numbers, that's an economist's nightmare. how is this thing possibly sustainable? A lot of ranchers in my area are getting out of the business because the price of beef is so high. This is their opportunity to make back everything that they owe the bank for, kind of deal. So that is sort of the perspective I'm trying to take, and it's really just an educational thing. I want people to realize that when they see these things on YouTube, when they hear about these plant closures, the rancher themselves are very often not to blame. You're seeing the worst of the very worst, and the ranchers that I know and the producers that I know are genuinely hardworking people that have been in. They own a family business and have for 4, 5, 6 generations. So, that's ultimately, what I do. My first feature, I'll digress again here, my first feature was a rodeo film called Changing the Game. It was about the Camarillo family, who was a team roping family, Leo, Gerald, and Reg Camarillo, who took team roping and rodeo as a sport, sort of like you guys did, examined all the rules and statistics in crowdfunding and what's going on there, and then they turned that whole industry on its ear, and they used the rules to their own advantage, and very often they would show up at rodeos through between the 1960s all the way into the 90s, and they would show up at rodeos and take first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place and walk away with everybody's money. So that whole concept was interesting about how they manipulated the system in order to play the game.
Going slightly off topic here, I'm wondering, when you go into these quote environments, whether it's. Home or whether it's at the corporate offices of a plant. What's your approach? How much do you engage with the quote subjects, or do you really want to get to know the people first before you turn the camera on? What's your approach?
It's a good question, Karen. Personally, I don't really want to know them much at all. I want to be, I try really hard to take a journalistic approach. I don't want to be their friend because I might have to ask them some hard questions. But unfortunately, at the same time, in the genre that I work with and what is being put out there, people are not often very trusting. So first, I have to convince them that I'm not that sort of wacko environmentalist guy that's just going to sneak on your property and I'm waiting for you to, abuse an animal so that I can put it on YouTube. I'm not that guy. So it's this sort of, when I meet somebody new, unless I'm personally introduced by someone who can vouch for me, kind of deal, sometimes it's tough. Fortunately, I've been doing this a long time, and I've been working with this organization, and in my area, I have a reputation for being an advocate in agriculture, and a lot of people know me. But again, very good question. I called some people at the California Cattlemen's Association, and it took me nearly full 10 minutes for them to just give me some very simple statistics for them to find out who I was, and I wasn't going to use those statistics against them, so that makes it tough for what I do. So are there certain things that you do to build trust? I mean, you say you come in and you don't really want to get to know too much about them, and we know that from doing our show. Like, we would meet people in the lobby, and it would be great. We'd want to talk, and we'd almost be like, you know what, we almost don't want to go there because we want it to be fresh for the air. So we would try to limit the small talk and limit the, hey, where'd you grow up kind of a thing for a little bit. Are there things that you would do, just little tactics? Not tactics, but just rules that you would use? Yeah, there's one general rule that I use in documentary, and the documentaries that I make are not super controversial. They certainly tell a side of the story. You're a limited time. It's difficult to explore all of the facets of one particular story. But really, the point I'm trying to get across in the documentaries that I make is, hey, this is this story. So one of my general rules is I never take the Michael Moore approach, which means I will never try to edit in such a way or put out material that I think may be that I think may cause somebody harm down the road. I think there's a trust thing involved, and then on top of that, you just got to be honest with people. It is what it is. The first thing I have people do when I meet them is sign a release form, and you don't know how many times we call them rerides. Reride stories. How many times these cowboys that we get to sit down with, they put their hand up and they say, you have this off now, right? And I'm like, okay, I have to turn this off because I know you're about to tell me a story that when you're dead, I want to share with people, And that's one of the most difficult things that I face, to convince those guys, no, I'm not turning this camera off, that the reason we're sitting down with you is because I want to hear these real stories about, around here, there's a famous rancher named Phil Stadler, Hall of Famer, one of the first cowboys in all of the United States to bring cattle in from Mexico for breeding. So the cattle you see when you're driving from where I'm at, from San Francisco to Yosemite, and Karen, you're familiar with that drive, but when you're coming this way, those cattle are direct descendants from the cattle that Phil Stadler had brought in from Mexico. And everybody's got a Phil Stadler story or a Dave Vermont story, or all of these names that I have over time become familiar with, but they all say, turn the camera off and I'll tell you this story. And it's like, no, I don't want you to do that. That's the reason we're here. I'm trying to collect this. And, it's one thing as a documentarian or a historian to collect that information and keep it and hoard it. Yes, we've got it, we're going to put it in the archives. It's a whole other thing, and I think we're living in this day and age, it's a whole other thing to put it out there. And, like what you guys did with Goodbye Promise is a great example. We have the opportunity to put it in people's face. If I can create a cut that'll give somebody, collect their attention span in 3.5 minutes about this great story, even though they may not know these cowboys, but give them a 3.5-minute cut of this great story that they'll never forget on YouTube. Well, now I have the opportunity to expose them to a completely different culture, and that's what it is. I mean, the Western lifestyle and where I'm at, it's a culture of life that I think a lot of people take for granted.
One more question, slightly off topic.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when the person that you're interviewing is just being really nice about everything? And, oh, it was great, and everybody was so wonderful, and you can sense intuitively that's not the truth, and that's not the real story, and you're trying to dig deeper, and you don't want to antagonize them, and you don't want to be a sort of a gotcha journalist, but you want to get them beyond that nice point where everything's just fluffy and wonderful, and you realize that's not the real truth.
That's interesting. I think the approach that I've taken in the past is to take what they say for face value and then find somebody else who's going to tell me the truth. I can't make somebody tell me what they don't want to say. I mean, I don't have a lie detector attached to them. I have been in those situations where I know the story, and I will try to multiple times, in the questioning, be more specific, or try to invoke what I think the truth may be from what I heard out of them. But if they're not going to tell you, they're not going to tell you. And I think I chalk it up to, of course I keep the footage, but I chalk it up to, that must be their perspective on it. And I look for somebody else, if that's what I'm looking for. I look for somebody else who's going to tell me the truth. And believe me, there's a lot of straight shooting cowboys around here that are willing to tell you the truth.
So you just kind of move on. You realize you're not going to be able to dig deeper with that person.
Why waste the time?
Right, okay.
So,
one thing I wanted to touch on here, Kevin, is here you are, you have your work, you said, thankfully, you have funding for a lot of work that you do. It sounds like you have an arsenal of short films. You also have this feature film, and it sounds like, even though the work is funded, here you are still trying to find your own distribution path for the short films and for the feature film. Can you talk about the difference in distributing both, the short films and the feature film? Can we just start there?
Yeah, I do want to point out that when I say that they're funded, they are not funded heavily. It is a nonprofit, and on the average, for instance, my film Changing the Game, shameless plug here, but my film Changing the Game, this film cost $3,000 to make, and we ate top ramen and we stayed at people's houses when we had to travel to San Luis and Santa Barbara in order to collect interviews. We begged friends just like any other indie filmmaker would do. What a lot of people don't understand, in order to make that film, we had to spend $2,700 on a camera. So that greatly diminishes your budget. So they're not funded heavily. Again, the other part of your question was distribution. I have a very niche audience. I know that trying to distribute and connect with an audience the way that you guys did with Goodbye Promise, just kind of randomly, hey, this is my film, check it out, is not effective for me. So I also have to understand my audience in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the rodeo and ranching crowd are not heavily involved in social networking. Fortunately, for the advocates of agriculture, that is evolving, and they're starting to get more involved, so they're becoming more connected. But I had to do a couple of print advertising deals, which were kind of a swap. A little bit was one of the things that I did with Changing the Game was I went to a magazine called Roper Sports News, which is specifically targeted at teen ropers, which is the genre of the film. And I said, if you let me put my VOD on your site, give me a page, I'll write an article, let me put it on your site, I'll make you a sponsor. And whenever I tell people go to the site and watch it, I'll say, brought to you by Roper Sports News. That has been a great marriage. I mean, that has been a huge thing for me. A lot of people discovered the film, the film there digitally. Ultimately, distribution came down to DVDs. Again, in my genre, people want something tangible. They want to hold it in their hands. Ranchers and team ropers, they don't use the HTC One or the iPhone 5. They want the flip phone because they put it in their pocket, they fold it up, put it in their pocket because they're working all the time, and it doesn't butt dial anybody. So it's a little bit different. They're a little bit technologically challenged, but I'm forced to use technology in order to connect with them. So it was kind of a cross between both. As far as selling the film, and Lucas, I think, wrote an article about this in Filmmaker magazine when he was here. As far as selling the film, I went to DVD. I put it on my website. I took it for the first time to Ruby Mountain Film Festival in Elko, which is an awesome film festival. If you ever have the chance to go, it's awesome film festival. Great people. And that was sort of the first laurels that I got on the cover. And couple of magazine articles, some key people, Bobby Cook at Western Horseman, of course, Roper Sports News, some other people wrote some stuff about it, and it took off like that. But again, my genre doesn't necessarily read blogs. They want the hard copy magazine, and so I knew print advertising was going to be invaluable. When Lucas was here, one of the parts that he was writing about in his article that he wrote about me was he was pretty astonished that every time I went to my computer and turned my computer, there'd be 4 or 5 orders for a DVD. I said it cost $3,000 to make. I'm pretty sure in the end it's grossed probably $5,000 or $6,000 in DVD sales. So if you indie terms, you put it that way, it's a success. So I've made back what I put into it, and and all the costs thereof. So it's not paying my rent. But at least I'm getting my art out there. So
that's really cool.
Wow. And what do you do to sort of keep the life of the film going, or keep eyeballs on it, and sort of keep those sales going?
That's another great question. And I took a Jay DePlace approach on that and a Kevin Gant approach on that. And I love how we all work with each other. Jay made this great movie that I threw money at, and I just love Kevin's music. It inspires me constantly. And Kevin was able to take that and then forward his own career. So what I did was I got with my subjects and I said, now how can I help you? You guys let me make this movie, and you're letting me take all the royalties from this movie. So what can I do to help you? So now I'm involved with helping them break through that technology challenge, and I'm able to share with them my knowledge of social networking and how to reach another audience. Of course, these guys are retired, and how they make money is through teaching other people to do what they did, through roping schools and rodeo schools. And so I've helped them set up sort of Facebook pages, and where I'm helping them consult with how to reach out to people on their website. We've done print advertising for them and that sort of. So it's become this sort of trade. They gave me this great product and all of these great stories, and they're letting me profit on that. So I went to them and I said, you know, what can I do? And they said, this is what I need. And I said, this is how I can help you with that. And we're seeing success in that. As a matter of fact, looks like I'll be taking over their website pretty soon in order to you know, kind of rebrand them, I guess. You know, they're not dead is what I'm trying to say. Even though they're retired and they roped in the 60s and, you know, 90s, the last buckle one, I guess, world title was 85, I believe. Might even been 97. I'd have to do my research again. But they're not dead. A lot of people think they are. As a matter of fact, recently there's a rumor floating around Facebook that Leo is dead. And it was like, wait a minute, Leo's alive and kicking in Arizona, and he's still winning money. So.
And so, I mean, has this led to, you know, in addition to that, has this led to sort of like maybe some smaller side film projects, you know, because it almost sounds you can use those, you know, some sort of tutorial or video or something as another way to shine light on what they're doing now, as well as maybe an ancillary way to sort of shine light back to changing the game.
You know, it has. A lot of people have, you know, in everything that I do, it's a very niche genre, the Western lifestyle. Dale Jackson, who is a local author around here, just won the Will Rogers Medallion Award for his book, They Rode Good Horses, that's pretty prestigious. I mean, the Will Rogers Medallion is, for Western author, is just about as good as it gets. And he reached out to me, and now he's wanting me to collaborate with him on doing some book trailers and some things that, you know, he has going on. So, you know, with what I've done here, it opens a whole new door into a whole set of Western authors. Incidentally, They Rode Good Horses has already been bought for a movie script. The deal is done. They're going to make a Hollywood production out of it. So, you know, hopefully, maybe one of these days I'll actually be able to come down and visit you guys, and I'll be in LA and, you know, working on a real crew. So.
That's cool.
Well, I mean, you know, you'll have to take us horseback riding. I don't know. Have you ever ridden a horse, Karen?
I have, at the Equestrian Center in Burbank at one time. And it was a lot of fun. I was scared, but I mean, you're in sort of in control of this huge animal, and it's very power. I've heard that they've used sometimes horseback riding to treat people with different problems in therapy, that because you're in control of this huge animal, you're able to sort of transcend other things that are wrong. And but that wasn't why I was there. But I was just there with some friends. But it was a lot of fun.
Wow, yeah.
I think you'd like it.
Yeah, I've never done it, so you know, maybe that'll make for a special LA occasion there, Kevin.
Excellent. Well, I want to again, I'm a big advocate, so I want to dispel a myth that Karen just said.
Oh, really?
You're not in charge of that animal. He has a mind of his own.
Okay.
And you have a whole lot of trust on the back of that animal that he's going to do what he does. And incidentally, Burbank Equestrian Center, that's where William Shatner rides. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I know there's a lot of people that have horses sort of near where we are, and you'll sometimes see them, not so much in the neighborhood, but in the trails where actually Goodbye Promise was shot. But yeah, I don't know much about whether. I know for me it was scary. I was very scared, and there was this feeling of being vulnerable in some sense, because you don't know what that animal's going to do, and in passing them around sort of further up the road, you know, just driving, you know, just really slow by them, and you don't know, are you going to scare them, and so it's got to be very...
That's an incredibly powerful metaphor, Karen, because, you know, it comes back to Goodbye Promise. There's a lot of trust there. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's an animal you have no control over. So,
Yeah.
Really interesting metaphor you just used.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great chat for us, Kevin. You know, this has been, you know, it's been sort of several years in the making, leading up to this point, and we're really thrilled that we had a chance to sit down with you on a Sunday afternoon and catch up with you through this Google Hangout method, and hear some of your insight in terms of what we've done, and to take it into sort of the cowboy realm, which is we haven't at least for me, I haven't had a lot of exposure to this world. So this has been really fascinating for me.
Yeah, we're thrilled that you've been a great supporter of what we do. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I always am, and in indie film community in general. You know, in closing, I want to say, if you guys want more of the, and I'm always in pitch mode, if you want more of the cowboy thing, come up here and make movies. I mean, we're right here at Tuolumne County is just east of me, and they have over 300 films to their credit. The Lone Ranger, parts of Eastwood's Unforgiven was filmed here on a ranch that I've shot at many times, the Grohl Ranch. They just oodles and oodles, The Great Train Robbery. I mean, it's just so many films, and there's so many resources and quality crew up here, and casting directors and people willing to work. So, you know, if you're those that are watching, if you're an independent filmmaker and you're looking for a place to shoot, come on up, explore a little bit. It's real film friendly around here.
Well, Kevin, expand on that. I mean, how hard is it to tap into those resources? What do people have to do? I mean, is there a contact person? How would one get started?
Jerry Day at the Tuolumne County Film Commission it'd be your first start. If you want anything else and you want to know who you want references, contact me. I'll tell you I'll put you right in touch with anybody you want to talk, you know, to get things done, or at least to move forward. I mean, I don't want to take control of anybody's film, but you know, one of the challenges that I deal with as a filmmaker where I'm at outside of Hollywood is having people to work with in order to make the film. So, you know, we'd like to see more of you guys come out our way. Leave LA, you know, go ahead and fulfill your Goodbye Promise and come out where we're at. And you know, you can follow your dream here too, and you can do it anywhere. You can do it in Michigan, you can do it in New Jersey, you can do it anywhere. I'm not convinced these days that we need Hollywood to follow our dreams, and this chat is a fine example. I mean, we're all so connected nowadays, and the world continues to get smaller, and we need to explore more of it. So